Hey fellas, Airport Anon here with a spooky story from a coworker. Not nearly enough spooky shit happens to me at work here, but everyone in my team has at least one. This story comes from one of the regular late night workers, we'll call him Jay. Late night shift at the international terminal, usual gig. Boring night for Jay, last flight is boarding, time to pack up and head home. Once store is shut, Jay needs to hit the shitter. International toilets are always a pigsty at this time because of filthy passengers. Decides to wait to go to the bathroom in between domestic and international, airport so small they're effectively the same building. Gets out to domestic terminal, they're all getting closed up and cleaned for the night. Annoyed, Jay heads around the terminal to find anything open. Finally find one not closed or getting cleaned. Shitty little bathroom on the other side of departure gates. And when I say little, I mean this bathroom is little. It's literally 2 stalls, a urinal and a sink. Wedged into the walls as an emergency stop for those who didn't go, it doesn't see a lot of use. Jay gets into a stall, starts doing his business. Stall next to him is occupied, he can hear some low, heavy breathing, but that's it. Uncomfortable, but what can you do? Finishes up and starts to go, the slider won't unlock. Hears a loud thud next to him, like someone just slumped to the ground. Jay is trying to get the slider to move, but it just won't budge. That's when the sound of thumping on the door from the next stall starts, like someone is trying to get out. The lights start fizzing out, Jay is starting to panic. Thumps are getting louder, more aggressive. Someone really wants out of their stall. The lights are about to go out, and the smashing on the stall door is getting too much. The smell of rotten shit is filling the bathroom, like something died and was left to rot. Jay finally decides fuck it, slides under the stall door and runs out. Jay gets out of the bathroom, the slamming on the next stall sounds like it'll tear the door off. Rushes out to find security, tells them what's going on. Follow him back to the bathroom, it's empty, lights work perfectly, other stall is totally empty. Security for some reason don't seem too bothered. Jay leaves to go home because WTF was that. Later we followed up on what the hell happened. Turns out that a big Samoan dude died of a heart attack in that very stall late at night about 2 weeks ago. Airport EMTs had to pry the door open to get the fat cunt out, as he had fallen against it as he died, wedging it shut. Security had about 2 previous call-outs to similar incidents there, and another one afterwards, so that seems to be why they weren't too fazed. It's been about a year since then and there's been no other incidents, so I guess the guy finally found his rest. Jay obviously never used that bathroom again, and I avoid it now as well. Looks like a human silhouette. Only it's floating 30 feet in the air. Transparent enough that I can see the alder trees behind it perfectly. Looks just like reality is embossed around the shape of this man-shaped outline, without legs. Can feel it staring at me. Overcome with a slow, creeping horror. Hard to explain, but I could feel like I was in this thing's home and I was not welcome. I blink, hoping the thing will disappear. Blink some more. It's still there. Slowly loop the shoulder strap of my backpack over my arm, grab my rifle with my other hand. Quickly hop to my feet and take off running in the opposite direction from the floating thing. Wind kicks up just then again. Unnaturally cold. I'm in 98-degree sunlight and it feels like a winter chill. Trees shake, leaves fall around me while I sprint through the swamp back to familiar territory. Realize then, shit, I'm lost. This makes no sense. I ran in the direction I'd come from, into territory I cross all the time, but nothing looks familiar. Take cover behind a fallen tree and begin appraising the situation. I know the direction I came from, and I have rough idea of where the main road is. Using that, and one of the nearby creeks, I managed to find the main trail. Still feeling watched though. And still feel like I'm not welcome here. Hoof it down the trail, and after about a quarter mile I finally find my way back to my property. It took me a long time to return this area. Between the sighting of that thing and getting lost in familiar terrain, I'm not afraid to admit I was genuinely terrified. Time passes. Eventually I get the balls to return to this spot with a better plan. As soon as I arrive, that cold wind kicks up again. This time, I begin to pray. And using advice from some dumbass wannabe pagans I used to know, I audibly speak into the woods. Say that I have no idea what that thing I saw was and that I have no quarrel with it, but it does not have my permission to follow me home. Never have any other experiences in this area afterwards. Not sure what the apparition was, but the wannabe pagans I mentioned said it was a forest wight. Like a spirit that protects the forests in Euro myth, I guess. They suggested I leave an offering. Something without any artificial components, plastic, rubber, etc., so I left a wooden figurine and a bagel once. Didn't do shit, as far as I can tell. Continuing with a different sighting. This one involves a friend of mine, too. We both saw this thing outside an old shack that belonged to this crazy dude we used to know. High school days. My hometown has a well-known resident schizo named Roy. In my parents' generation, Roy was a big damn deal. He was the first to bring our high school football team to state. Handsome, popular dude with no shortage of girlfriends, etc. All that changed after his brother died in a murder disguised as a hunting accident. The suspect was another local schizo. This drove Roy into a long, unbelievably deep spiral that he never fully emerged from. Ended up diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. Went off his meds every few months. When he did, he often attacked the asphalt road in front of his shack with a pickaxe. He did this while screaming that there was a secret underground tunnel that ran under his property. Said the zippers used it to steal stuff from his house and then escape undetected into the woods. He called these mysterious thieves the zippers because of their speed. They'd zip in and out without being seen. Roy was eventually banned from every public space in town for his panhandling and threats to people who questioned him. Roy was fond of my family though. He told me we had a good aura, but probably it was just because we actually treated him with respect. Plus my parents were friends of his before his episodes ever started. Interesting note: Roy could, upon request, immediately recite all the numbers off the plate on any telephone pole in the town. He also claimed repeatedly that he was a reincarnated soldier from the Union Army named Robert G. Steben, Stebben. Anyways, my family would often deliver fresh water to him in gallon jugs. On one visit he offered to show me the room where he said spoke with Satan on a nightly basis. I politely declined. On this particular visit, Roy had torn up all the flooring from his two-room shack in order to expose the hidden tunnel network underground, the one the zippers supposedly used. He had tossed all the wood into a heap and set it ablaze in a bonfire. That's when my friend and I saw what we saw. I was making the weekly delivery of water jugs and had my good friend with me. Being off his meds made Roy a serious talker. He'd jabber on for hours with his delusional ramblings. So my friend and I sat politely, half listening to what Roy was saying, when I looked past Roy's shack and saw something in the woods behind it. The basic description is this: it was humanoid, stood about 1.5 times taller than an average man, but about half as wide. Tall, skinny fucker, covered in shaggy black hair. It was there for a moment before bounding away into the brush. Bipedal. Seemed to look back over its shoulder at us as it left. Moved much faster than any person could in such thick woods. Since I was kinda daydreaming while listening to Roy's ramblings, I kind of thought I might be imagining things. The sun was going down, too. But my friend tugs at my sleeve and asks, "Did you see that too?" It was a long, silent, intense car ride home. We didn't talk about it till we were back and safe. I gathered that my friend really only saw the thing after it moved, whereas I got the better look at it. We discussed what it logically could have been till we decided it didn't fit any logical explanation we could think of. Kinda just dropped it after that. Roy died a few years ago after letting some tweakers move in with him. Now his old hut has been demolished. The road leading to it has as of it now been left intentionally blocked. Several fallen trees and abandoned cars will impede your path if you try to drive down that road. Pic related is a random pic from the general area. Sasquatch story. This one comes from a friend. Friend has a weekly routine which he almost never deviates from. Sundays are for horseback riding. Introspective time, out alone riding his horse as long as he wishes with a backpack full of food and drinks. Done it a million times in the past, just him and his horse in the mountains, exploring lakes and riverbeds around there. Needless to say, he and his horse have a special bond. One morning, friend saddles up, kisses the wife goodbye, and goes out riding like usual. Heads up the mountain, Pic related, intending to find a nice vantage point, hitch his horse, and take in the view. A few hours riding and he comes across a part of the woods he'd not visited before. There's a small ravine there. Friend crosses. Then begins ascending the slope. But horse bucks him off without warning, sending him tumbling down to the creek at the bottom. At the same moment, an awful, sickening rotten stench surrounds him. He hears crashing sounds and other loud noises out of view, over the crest of the hill. Horse panics and flees, leaving him alone. Now there he is, ass in the creek, with some beast, or whatever it is, somewhere above him. His only protection is a fixed blade knife and backpack full of expired canned soup and Vienna sausages. Something begins lobbing tree limbs and large rocks over the edge at him. When he finally regains his senses, he gets to his feet. Runs in the same direction his horse did, through unfamiliar terrain, with that same crashing noises right behind him the whole time, like whatever it is chasing him. He continues running as fast as he can, up and down through the gullies, over rocks, between the trees, till he feels like he might collapse. Breathing is growing short, ache in his sides. Right when exhaustion is creeping up on him, everything goes silent. He looks around and finds that he's back at the trailhead. His horse is nervously milling about and my friend's pursuer is nowhere to be seen. Feeling fortunate, he hops back on his horse and heads home early. Hasn't ever been back to that side of the mountain since. He isn't the only person to have had experiences on that mountain though. Just a few months ago, during the company employee appreciation picnic, somebody's rat dog goes missing. It's found a few days later, eviscerated. Another lady told me that while camping there with her family, something huge and bipedal was circling the campsite, staying just out of the fire's light. I've been there myself. Never experienced anything spooky, but I did return with several pictures of the beautiful scenery. Working in National Park in Ireland. 5 years ago. Mostly made clean up rubbish on main trails. Sometimes made fix info signs and gates, etc. Comfy as fuck for most the time. One day made fix an information sign about 5 kilometers into a steep trail. Pissed off as I was hungover from beers the night before. My own fault, I guess. Fresh air and walk actually felt good though. As I'm fixing the sign, man approaches me. Can hear the footsteps but I don't turn around as I'm mid-job. Asks me in this deep monotone voice where the toilets are. What the fuck, why would he ask this up a mountain? Turn around and he's facing away from me for some reason. Standing completely upright like he's in a military parade or something. About 6.5 feet tall but skinny as fuck. Tell him the toilets are back at the visitor center down the trail. Says thanks and walk off. Sounds like really old version of voice to text when he's saying that. Turn around, get back to the job. Notice I heard no footsteps. Turn around and cannot see the man at all. Assume he walked into the bushes or something to do a piss. Don't see him at all on the way back down. Be me. 4 to 5 years old at the time. Living in an old house probably built in the 60s in Ogden, Utah. House had 4 rooms but we always had uncles living with us, so me and my brothers would sleep in the living room floor. I would usually knock out at 9 p.m. Brothers would stay up like deacons till 1 to 2 a.m. Once they slept, they slept. And don't wake up for shit. I would usually wake up wide awake around 3 to 4 a.m. One night as I lay there staring into darkness, I couldn't help but start noticing little dark figurines forming / appearing in front of me. As my eye vision adapted to the dark, I could see them a lot clearer. These were tiny 1-foot-tall duendes or little beings. I could clearly see their little outlines and they had faces with scars all over, all staring right at me. I would try waking my brothers up but they wouldn't budge. Went back to sleep. This began occurring every single night for weeks. My parents and brothers wouldn't believe me when I would tell them in the daytime. Thought to myself, maybe I'm hallucinating or it isn't anything. Another night comes and they began appearing below my feet. I could 100% see little creatures staring right at me, freaked the fuck out lol and knew I wasn't trippin'. Woke up one of my older brothers as I cried. He finally woke up and looked. He proceeds to say there wasn't shit and to go back to sleep. I continued to see them, so I thought WTF. Maybe he didn't even look right or only I couldn't see them. Began sleeping in a room after my uncle moved out and never saw them again. Be me 4-5 years old at the time, living in an old house probably built in the 60s in Ogden, Utah. House had 4 rooms but we always had uncles living with us, so me and my brothers would sleep in the living room floor. I would usually knock out at 9 p.m. Brothers would stay up like deacons till 1-2 am. Once they slept, they slept. And don't wake up for shit. I would usually wake up wide awake around 3-4 am. One night as I lay there staring into darkness, I couldn't help but start noticing little dark figurines forming / appearing in front of me as my eye vision adapted to the dark. I could see them a lot clearer. These were tiny 1-foot-tall duendes or little beings. I could clearly see their little outlines and they had faces with scars all over, all staring right at me. I would try waking my brothers up but they wouldn't budge. Went back to sleep. This began occurring every single night for weeks. My parents and brothers wouldn't believe me when I would tell them in the daytime. Thought to myself, maybe I'm hallucinating or it isn't anything. Another night comes and they began appearing below my feet. I could 100% see little creatures staring right at me. Freaked the fuck out lol and knew I wasn't trippin'. Woke up one of my older brothers as I cried. He finally woke up and looked. He proceeds to say there wasn't shit and to go back to sleep. I continued to see them, so I thought, what the fuck, maybe he didn't even look right or only I couldn't see them. Began sleeping in a room after my uncle moved out and never saw them again. Okay, fuck it, here it is, how I ended up spending a year working for a glowy for hire agency. Warning, very long, kinda boring, no conclusion. True story though. But names changed and identifying details omitted because lots of NDAs. As you'll see. December 2019. I'm broke and unemployed, applying to jobs online non-stop. Not even reading them at this point, get an email back from one. Not unusual, but I've had shit luck, so I leave it for a day. Next day I read it and holy fuck, $55,000 a year plus $3,000 immediate hiring bonus, clerical work job, and all I need is to qualify for secret clearance. I can probably do that. So I email them back and say I'm interested. Phone call with recruiter. They seem cool. They give me the gist of the job, seems like normalish office work. Company building is also generic office. 2 more interviews and I'm thinking, bro, come on, this isn't Silicon Valley, but they're polite, so I go along with it. Get told they want to hire me. I just gotta get the clearance. Another month goes by and it's nearly January. But I get the clearance, start date January 6th. Yes. That one. Fast forward day 1, they throw not 1. Not 2. But 7 packets of NDAs and paperwork at me to sign. Holy fucking shit, okay. Goddamn. Gimme a pen, make sure you read them. You have all day. I read them. They bring me lunch at noon so I can work through it. My brain is melting by the end of it, but the gist is if you leak anything we will fire you, sue you, and throw you to the government who will fuck your ass. Lots of long words that look made up, like I'm not stupid, but it genuinely just looked like schizobabble. Finish signing everything by 3:30 p.m. Good, you can go home for the day. Tomorrow we'll introduce you to your team. They also give me the $3,000 bonus as an e-transfer immediately, which is odd but okay. Sleep like a rock with its rent paid. Back at company early next morning, meet my new boss. Some Indian guy with a very Indian name, just gonna call him Deep because that's what his name ended with. Deep's a nice guy, but kinda awkward in that way most Indian immigrant men are. Tells me that for now, we're just going to deal with non-classified stuff to ease me into everything. The company, by the way, is basically a gigantic pie conglomerate type thing. Think Pinkertons but less violent. First week goes by quick and easy. I'm just helping Deep out by finding docs for him. Some of the stuff in them is a bit skeezy, like pictures of dudes fucking hookers taken through windows. But it's mostly tame. Meet a few more workers on the team too. Andrew, Lee, and Mark. Mostly kept away from them because they're working on other things. Soon enough, February rolls around and Deep says I'm doing well. Everyone's also getting a little freaked out by COVID because all we have are the China numbers and they're bad. Deep says I'm going to work with Lee on his project. Lee's a Chinese American and he's been taking time off recently because he's worried about his relatives. The project is different for sure. Tracking certain people in Boston of all places who are suspected to be connected to terrorism. Nothing paranormal though. The point of all this is to make you understand. This job was normal right up until it wasn't anyway. I don't know if these people were threats or not, but we were basically just making dossiers out of shit. Our field people were gathering March hits. We're sent home on the 6th and told not to come back. Wait, I'm fired? No, the whole state is about to lock down. We're gonna mail you a work laptop to use. Just stay safe. From home? Yeah. When you get it, log in with your company credentials and message Deep. Well, fuck me. Okay, the money is good, so being able to jerk off and play video while working just makes it better. An entire month passes before I get the laptop. I was still getting paid, but holy fuck. I had nightmares near the end about waking up to a layoff. Notice the laptop isn't even a good model. It's some Acer piece of shit branded with the company logo. Pop it open. Hook it to my Wi-Fi. Log into Outlook. Over 1,000 new messages. All corpo spam mailing list bullshit. Message Deep on Teams. No reply. Fuck it. Keep the laptop open and go back to Po. No message all day. No message back all week. Despite me messaging Deep every day, nobody on my team is online and I don't know of any other contacts. Literally do nothing and get paid until someone finally messages me. Almost 2 weeks into Lee quit. Deep's on sabbatical and flew back to India. Mark was supposed to contact me but he got fucking fired, and Andrew got reassigned. They basically forgot they hired me but kept paying me only in corporate America. Well, it's not your fault. We do need someone else on an RV's team. Are you okay with the transfer? I don't know what the fucking RV's team is, but yeah, okay, we'll prep your transfer paperwork. Sit tight. 2 weeks pass and I make sure to check in every day to not get fired. Okay, you're ready. Just sign this new NDA and attend the meeting on the 30th, then call Shane on the Monday after. New NDA? Wait, the 30th? A fucking Saturday? It's just 2 hours in the morning. You also get a $10K/year raise for this position change. Yes sir, right away sir, thank you for the job and extra time off sir. Oh, and here's your wiki key. For the company wiki. Turn on your VPN and go to https://companyname.org/wiki. Try it, get a login page asking for employee ID, password, and key. You can read anything at access level 2 and below. Start with the RV's onboarding page. Yes sir, thanks sir, I'll get right on that sir. Call ends. I go back to clearing T16s for the rest of the night. Wednesday before the meeting. Okay, maybe I should check that wiki, thinks the gamer as he loses his third hardcore character of the week. Hop onto company wiki. Put the key in. Get access. Looks half-assed to be perfectly honest. But there's a link to RV's onboarding on the front page and I click it. Turns out RV's is short for remote viewing support. I had no idea what that meant at the time. So I clicked the article for remote viewing. Felt like my brain was melting by the end of it. Can't tell if I'm being pranked or not, but decide to go with it to make a good impression either way from what I can tell. An RV's team is basically made up of a bunch of people who take information from the RV team and make it usable. There are tons of forms and procedures that are supposed to be followed and I can practically smell the middle manager semen through the web page if I'm being honest. I only spent about 45 minutes on the wiki before I shut the laptop. It's almost 3x as much work as I was doing before. I got almost 3 fucking months of free money to make matters worse. The meeting on Saturday is at 9 a.m. according to the schedule on Outlook. I have not been getting up before 11:30 for almost 2 months. Spent several miserable days adjusting back to a sane sleep schedule. Read a bit more on the company wiki too, but again, at this point I have no idea if I'm being fucked with. Like, was I really supposed to believe that there were dudes doing telepathy experiments in the same building I was in a few months ago? Anyway, Saturday rolls around and I manage to fall out of bed at 8:45 just in time to gulp down a monster and get into the Zoom call. At 9 sharp the leader of the meeting jobs the call. And I hit record because I'm half asleep. We'll call him Hugo. And he sounds about as tired as me as he pops open his PowerPoint slides. At least the meeting isn't going to be overly formal. Hugo introduces himself as a PMR tech and reads the title of the first slide, Intro to Parapsychology in the Most Soulless Corporate Way You Can Imagine. Hugo proceeds to go to the next slide and tell us there are 12 people including Hugo. The contents of the meeting: recent history, psychic field, psychic abilities, common misconceptions. No time to ask anything and we're all put on mute. Then the trip begins. The gist of the recent history is that right after Stargate ended, the DIA made a remote viewing program and it was used in the War on Terror. Also, some Russian who was named Yuri wrote a paper on how psychic abilities work and it's legit. 30 minutes of schizo history later, Hugo tells us to take 5 while he preps the next part. I piss, brush my teeth, grab a Pop-Tart, and get back to the laptop. 5 minutes later Hugo starts up again. Psychic field is a non-material information field that permeates all matter and energy. Consciousness forms when the psychic field has enough information in it plus enough change in it, and the change is coherent. Everything you see or touch or I guess even pass by gets sucked into this extended zone around your consciousness where information gets read and written. Everyone does this all the time, but with training or practice you can control it. Real psychic shit is ESP stuff. Fake psychic shit is fireballs, telekinesis, etc. Oh, and if you tell anyone you're going to be fired, sued, and probably jailed. Just so you know. Before I go, just remember to report any suspected NPE contact to your supervisor. Meeting over the fuck is an NPE? Pop open wiki and search non-physical entity. You've gotta be fucking joking. PMR stands for psychomaterial research, or the study of how psychic fields affect and are affected by matter. NPEs are literally ghosts, spirits, fucking mind viruses, and something in a level 3 page labeled detached consciousness entities. I don't even want to know at this point, but I'm pretty sure I can imagine what's in there. Remote viewing is an unblockable fucking magic way of pulling information from the psychic field across vast distances. The only disadvantage to RVing is that it's inherently very inaccurate because not only does it require psychic training, but it draws a link to the target using matter and energy that contains psychic information that can corrupt it. This is why Stargate was shut down. They couldn't figure out how to remove the corruption of the info. Corporate America solution? Have 20 people do it at the same time and blame the RV's team if there are any major fuck-ups. I have been hired as a professional fall guy for psychics. I have been hired as a professional fucking fall guy for fucking corporate psychics. It's sort of all too much, so I just shut down. Go back to Po. Order a pizza. Rest of the weekend goes by in a haze. Monday rolls around and I message Shane on Teams. He's delighted to have me. Calls me up immediately, and we spend an hour going over everything before he gives me my first assignment for the next 3 weeks. I'm spending 10 hours a day sifting through handwritten documents and transcribing audio from RV sessions. Did I mention that this is boring? Imagine having to transcribe some faggot's brain dump ramblings and you can't fuck up anything because any word might be relevant. I wanna die. Finally finish, send everything to Shane. Oh, this is great, thanks. You're approved for a 0.05% commission on this, by the way. Huh, okay, how much is 0.05%? $1141.65, this time. Holy fuck. This is not a $65,000 a year job, this is an $80,000 a year job. Well, fuck me. Making 2x as much as I was in 2018 for office bitch work sounds pretty good. The months fly by. And bro, RV info is some weird shit. Sometimes the viewers don't even write words. They like sketch out pictures that look like a kindergartner drew them and we have to classify them. Other times they'll get sensory information like the smell of a place and there's a special form for classifying that for later use. Everything is kept fairly anonymized so we can't tell the specifics of what's being viewed a lot of the time. But usually we have an idea. X. A politician's favorite spots. The interior of some fag's house where he's hiding something. A cave where some terrorist fuck is hiding. Slowly it starts to become routine. Right up until I get a weird email one day. It's Andrew and the email looks like some kind of shitty attempt at a phishing scam. Don't even read it. The security department tests us with this shit all the time. Send it to the phishing reporter thing and go back to work. Weeks go by. Forget about it. Too busy stacking paper. Suddenly. Email from someone new. The chief of our department. Oh fuck. It's a meeting I can't refuse. In 4 days I'm gonna get fucking fired. God damn it. Show up to meeting, cam on, wearing decent clothes and a new haircut I had to get illegally. Mr. Anon, you were contacted by Andrew, last name, on September 18 th. Yeah, what color was the text? I'm sorry, what? The text in the email, what color was it? I don't know, I took one look and deleted it. Blue, I think? Blue is the default. Understood. I regret to inform you that we will no longer be requiring your services. Your layoff paperwork will be sent to you later today. Please note that this isn't a reflection on your performance, and you may seek references from your immediate co-workers. Fuck, suddenly I realize I should have been saving shit. Try to access the wiki and grab some shit. Cover my laptop cam and use my phone to take pics of the pages. I get 2 of them finished before my access is revoked. 2 NPE docs. Non-interactive psychic impression entities and interactive psychic impression entities. With the third, psychomaterial impression disruption. Half loaded before the page cuts off so no images or diagrams. Access revoked. Apparently that didn't do that before the meeting. Try to message my team members, they're all offline. Rather, I'm blocked. Check the recording I made of the Saturday morning meeting in May, it's still there. Play it back. Record with phone. Transfer all the phone files to my main PC and back them up on a USB ping. It's the layoff paperwork. I get 2 weeks of pay. Technically more than they were required to give. Yet another NDA. This time with sections that I have to sign mid-document. To summarize, you will delete any recordings and stored documents. Sign to agree. You will not disclose the nature of your work at company name. Sign to agree. You will receive a package in the mail and send our laptop back. Sign to agree. You will put your job title as Information Processing Technician on your resume. Sign to agree. You will give XXXXXXXX as the phone number of our company. Sign to agree. If you fuck this up, we will sue you so hard the trace amounts of precious minerals in your body will be repossessed. Faggot. Sign to agree. Sign this again to say you actually read the document. Faggot. Sign to agree. Can't exactly refuse. So I do it: disconnect laptop from internet and try copying saved video to USB. Surprisingly it works. I've made enough cash in 10 months to live on for a year, plus unemployment, so it's not that bad. 2 days later the box arrives and I send the laptop back, never hear from them again. Find a new job 4 months later making $50,000, RIP. So it's been just under 3 years now and I haven't had any feds on my doorstep, but I've also kept mostly quiet about the stuff I've got. The thing is though, I keep seeing bits of info I saw on that company wiki getting posted around in places mixed in with pure disinfo, and it really makes me wonder. Allegedly, there was some US disinfo campaign going on in the 50s to 90s to make psychics look retarded so nobody would suspect that the CIA was trying to develop psychic spies, but it's supposed to have stopped after the USSR fell and all that shit went public. Last night 3 a.m. laying down, trying to fall asleep to some program in my room, gradually hear an atmospheric rumbling getting louder and louder outside. At first think it's a plane flying over, but it doesn't go away. Just keeps rumbling. Look outside. Don't see anything out of the ordinary. No storm clouds. No planes. Helicopters, etc. Go back in and wait for it to go away. At one point it briefly fades out before coming back. In the interval between fading out and fading back in I hear an extremely loud radio static kind of noise. Like when you would turn off an old CRT monitor, but it's so loud that I get this weird tinnitus effect from it. It makes my ears ring and almost sounds like it's coming from inside my head. Rumbling stops after 20 minutes. It probably wasn't paranormal, but it was still weird. So it's been just under 3 years now and I haven't had any feds on my doorstep, but I've also kept mostly quiet about the stuff I've got. The thing is though, I keep seeing bits of info I saw on that company wiki getting posted around in places mixed in with pure disinfo, and it really makes me wonder. Allegedly, there was some US disinfo campaign going on in the 50s to 90s to make psychics look retarded so nobody would suspect that the CIA was trying to develop psychic spies, but it's supposed to have stopped after the USSR fell and all that shit went public. I mean, the history section of the presentation was pretty clear that Stargate went right into practical use after the project ended, so maybe they just kept it up to this day. Anyway, that's the story. Never found out why exactly they fired me, but I guess Andrew might have fucked me over? Maybe it was all a ploy to just get rid of me when they realized I probably wasn't supposed to be working in that department anyway. I wish this had more of a stinger to it, but reality is often disappointing. Still, it was basically my intro to /x/shit, so that's something. Not sure how to do the Greentext thing. Never posted this story online before. It's not my experience, but both my father and uncle saw it. Happened around 40 years ago, well before my time. This happened in Scotland. Dad was a teenager, lived in a small village in the countryside. He was out at night, walking alone to meet a group of friends that included my mom. He was walking up a dark and poorly lit country road. On the left was a farmer's field, forest behind it. This was surrounded by a brick wall, 6 feet plus. On the right was a small burn, like a small stream, then the forest continued. As Dad is walking up this road, he hears something following him from behind the wall, just assuming it was a cow, but it was breathing heavily. This eventually started to run, and around 40 feet ahead of him, it had jumped over the wall and landed on the road ahead. It stayed put and looked at my dad before jumping across the burn and running into the woods. Dad got the fright of his life and turned around and went home. When asking what he saw, he just describes as what appears to be some beast/werewolf type thing. He does not like to talk about it. As it turns out, my uncle also saw the same thing. He used to do the milk round in the village. He quit not long after. I am estranged from this uncle, so can't ask more about it. Years later, 10 plus, Dad was working in a large city for a bank. On his lunch break while sitting in a cafe, a woman approached him. She told him things only he knew, things about his future. Before leaving, She told him what he saw that night meant no harm, it wanted to be seen and it was not something of this world. First time posting something this long, I hope it works, posting from my phone. Enjoy. I'm sure many of you will call this BS, but it's one of a few paranormal stories I have. This story always makes me a little more sad than scared, but it is spooky. Grew up in a 3-bedroom house. Parents got the master bedroom, brothers and I got the next biggest room. My aunt got the smallest room. She lives in that room for years before she passes away in a car accident. Her boyfriend was driving them to a party when an 18-wheeler crashed and killed them on the freeway. Mom was devastated. Aunt's room remained untouched for a while during that time. I used to hear stuff in that room a lot. Aunt's room had hardwood floors. My bed was right up against the wall at night. I could hear footsteps through the wall, the distinct sound of someone pacing the floors. Sometimes I would hear the spring mattress creaking too, like someone was lying down in it. The scariest experience I had was when I got up in the middle of the night to use the restroom and heard footsteps in my aunt's room from the hall. The house was dark and everyone else was asleep. I hurried to the bathroom, did my business, and was returning to my room when I heard the doorknob to my aunt's room rattling. Not violently or anything, but it sounded very loud. In the silence I froze and stared at the door. I saw the doorknob jiggling. After a moment it stopped and I heard footsteps retreating away from the door. Bolted to my room and fell asleep hiding under the covers. Eventually the room was finally emptied. All the ghostly activity stopped. After that I wonder if my aunt's spirit was trapped in that room by her belongings. Maybe. Once we got rid of all her stuff I never heard anything again. Saw something like this as a kid once. Rural Nebraska. Fly fishing near my house surrounded by woods. I'm about 12 or 13. Spot something moving at eye level in the trees across the creek. For a second I think I'm getting dizzy but realize it's the trees. Almost looks like they shift slightly to one side. Happens really fast, very disorienting. Then I'm looking at a big face in the bark of one of the trees, transfixed by it. Slowly it fades away. Okay boys, here goes nothing. Winter of 2018 to 2019. Live in a rural area a couple of miles from town. Usually walk dogs in a mountain field near house. Night in question I stay home. Brother takes dogs out for a walk by himself. Moon isn't quite full, but still light out. Not a big deal. Just home in my room. Brother comes back after a while and asks parents if I followed him. They say no and ask why. He had been coming back on the same path we usually take and had apparently taken someone or something unawares. Said it was like a big, tall man that was slumped in a crouch on top of the hill when it saw him coming. The thing stood up, turned, and ran away from him at high speed up a very steep grade and disappeared. Could tell he was dead serious about it and shook up. I get my gun and a headlamp and we go out after it. Snow on the ground still in places, but it had melted so much it was impossible to find good tracks. It really stuck with him after that. He bought 2 guns and would never go walking up there after dark unless someone went with him. The idea of whatever it was peering into my bedroom made me so afraid that I hung blankets on my windows for a time afterward. Just weird. Anonymous 10/11/23. Wed. 22 hours 48 minutes and 47 seconds. No. 361494446. Play button. 361566083. 361588176. Only had one experience and it was very minor but still had me pretty spooked. Greater than 16 years old. Laying in bed trying to fall asleep late at night. Not tired at all. Hear notification on my phone. Decide fuck it, I'll check it. I'm not tired anyway. Reach for my phone on my nightstand. Hear woman screech extremely loudly. Don't touch it so fucking loudly. Shoot up in bed. What in the fuck was that? Sounded like it came from every direction. Severely spooked. Don't know what to make of it. Slowly reach for my phone again. This time a whisper. Don't touch it. Leave the phone alone for the night. Lay wide awake for another 2 hours. Thoroughly freaked the fuck out. Never experienced anything like that again. I never knew what to make of this experience. I was basically wide awake. The voice was incredibly loud, may as well have come from someone shouting at the top of their lungs right in front of my face. I don't even remember what the notification was at this point. No clue why a ghost / spurt / whatever the fuck wouldn't want me to look at it. Be me. City kid. 8 Yo, up at grandparents' place in the country for Thanksgiving. Everyone's a bit drunk. They start telling stories. Monsters, ghost stories, Just kid stuff. Grandpa suddenly speaks up. He hardly ever talks. When I was growing up out in the woods with my ma and pa, we used to have a woman who called herself Annie which living nearby. One day Annie came by and told my ma she wanted ma to give her my baby sister. Ma told her to take a hike. She didn't like that. She tried for a month to talk ma into giving her my baby sister. But ma wasn't having it, so then she put a curse on her. She said if she couldn't have the kid, nobody could, and if the kid died and my ma didn't give her the body, the devil would curse our house. That winter, the baby died. Wasn't that uncommon back then? He was born in 1921, and ma buried her out behind the shack. 1 week after she died, we all woke up to the sounds of her crying. This happened every night for next 3 weeks. Annie came by during those weeks to tell us to give her the body and ma told her to F off. Once the crying stopped, that's when the devil showed up. I was laying in my bed, on my side, when I felt something lay down right behind me. I felt breath on my neck. Stank like sulfur. Sounded like a dog. But we didn't own one. Pa hated them and would shoot any on our property. Arms wrapped around my chest and held me tight. And I just sat there all night like that. Happened for a whole week before it stopped. Never talked about it until my pa was dying and he asked me if I ever felt the devil lay down in my bed. Told him I had, and he went quiet. Died the next day. That's why we burned that shack down after he died. He's so serious he looks like he's in a trance. My grandma put her hand on his back and says it's time to go to bed. Didn't sleep at all that night. Never got to ask if he was serious since he died the next year. Story from grandmother. Time at work is split with 9 months in the UK and 3 in Toulouse in France. Co-worker in France is a guy named Michael. He's Welsh but has a posh English accent. His parents were deaf so he learned to speak by listening to the radio. Anyway, my grandmother and Michael are friends as much as co-workers can be. Will sit and have a chat over coffee on their breaks or whatever. One year she comes back to Toulouse and Michael isn't there. Asks another co-worker where he is and she says no one knows. Didn't show up to work and no one's heard from him since. Must have got a new job or moved away or something. Year or two passes by. Grandmother is in a rush about to go and meet some clients. Goes down to the break room to grab some coffee. Turns around and Michael is stood in the doorway. They make some totally normal brief small talk. Oh hi, how are you, etc. The kind of thing you'd forget straight after it happened. She explains she's late to see her clients so apologizes. Says goodbye and goes off. Later on that day she's speaking to someone else who works there. Mentions she saw Michael. Co-worker's face drops and she starts to get angry, questioning her as to why she'd say something like that. My grandmother's confused as to why she's shouting. Turns out the guy had been found dead, possibly murdered, not long after she was last back in France. Not a scary story as such, just odd. She swears blind the guy was stood there just like anyone else would be. Another story. This time from my uncle. He has this friend. Let's call him David. David had a sister who died very young. Maybe 6 or 7 years old. Years earlier when David was younger he'd been on a family holiday to Egypt. The sister kicked a football onto an old forgotten landmine and got blown up. Uncle was going through a bit of a paranormal phase. Went into the dead sister's room and sat on her bed and asked for her to communicate with him. Nothing. One day he calls David's house to ask to meet up. Someone picks up and it sounds like a young girl on the other end. You can guess where this going. He asks where David is and she replies he'll be back home in a couple of hours. Slightly confused he puts the phone down. When he next sees David he jokingly asks who the girl who answered the phone was, thinking it was some new, albeit very young sounding, girlfriend David had. David is very confused and explains that no one could have been at home at the time. My uncle said he'd rang, let alone some random kid. Turns out a photo of the sister hung just over where the telephone was. My uncle thinks he spoke to the spirit of the sister that day. WTF. I have a story like this in my family. My grandma, mom's mom, had some issue with her right hand, couldn't move it at all. Fingers were all locked up like bad arthritis. She let me feel it once and the hand was hard as stone. Finally asked her what happened to it and she told me a story. Said when she was younger she pissed off this old lady in her hometown. This was in rural Arkansas somewhere. way back in the 30s or 40s. I can't remember anyway. The old lady was known to be a witch. Grandma said she woke up one night and heard something outside her window. Looked out, there goes the old witch walking away from her house. Clearly visible in the moonlight. The next day she found a weird object buried in the dirt outside her room. Just below the window. Dog dug it up. The object looked like a little pillow with gross stuff inside it. She mentioned a tooth and some hair. Pillow was sewn up with red thread. A day later, the dog died that same night. Grandma had a weird dream where she wakes up in bed, hears something walking around her room, described it as similar to the trot of horse or a goat. Kind of a slow asterisk clop clop. Clop clop asterisk. Grandma realizes she can't move. The trotting approaches her bed, though she can't see anything. She feels a pair of hands clasp her right arm. Weird smell just then. A bit like burning. Feels pain in her right hand. Passes out. A week later, her hand locks up, never functions again. She's from an era where nobody went to the doctor, so she just lives with it. Could be a genuine medical issue, but the story is still weird because I could tell she wasn't bullshitting me. Be like 12. Have a recurring nightmare every now and then. Wake up within the dream in my bed late at night. Get up to go to the dream bathroom. Open door. Little grudge girl in white dress. Looks about 6 or 8. As soon as I see her, I'm paralyzed. Slowly sink down to the floor. Wake up 11 years later. Bad fun number. Try cannabis for the first time in edible form after a month. Get poltergeist activity. Wake up one morning paralyzed. Grudge girl is all grown up and hovering above me in my bed. White dress. Long black hair hides her face somewhat. Can't see her eyes, neck and head shaking back and forth rapidly like that scene in Jacob's Ladder. Disappears after 5 seconds. Wake up another day paralyzed but on my side. Literally hear a corny ass ghost sound. Oh, go to bed sometimes and hear a cute female voice say my name before I fall asleep. This fucking bitch. Hot and cold bullshit. Likelihood of getting rid of a spirit that's been with you since childhood, guys? I was around 15 years old. Annual family trip to New Orleans. We're from Texas, but we like it there. Plus Harris is way nicer than the Indian casinos across the Red River. Take a walk down the French Quarter. Mom and sister decide to look around in one of the tourist trap shops to go to the bathroom. Me and my dad stay outside. Just talking out of the corner of our eye, we see what looks to be some kind of businessman. Full suit, slacks, tie, sunglasses etc. Bald-headed and white too. Very easy to pick out of a crowd. Walks by us. We don't think much of it despite a few jokes about if he's headed to a bar. Greater than 1 minute later, I shit you not, me and my dad see the exact same dude, walking the exact same direction. Me and my dad are both taken aback, as there is no way he made the block that fast. Bald-headed guy walks away. Mom and sister come out of thrift shop. Me and my dad relate the story to them. We end up just figuring it was a glitch in the Matrix or something like that. Me and my dad still talk about this. It was really fucking weird. Still love Nola though. Be like 22, terribly depressed, living in mom's basement. Neat because of course I am abusing DPH to sleep because my dreams are preferable to my waking existence. Never in doses high enough to robo-trip. Start having frequent nightmares. I wake up feeling exhausted every time. This continues for months. One night I wake up flat on my back. There's someone in my room. They're standing at the foot of my bed. My eyesight is pretty shit, combined with the poor lighting, so I can't make out fine details. This humanoid being appears to be gray, about 5 feet tall, and either covered in matte leathery skin or it's made of smoke. I stared this thing in its face while lying in bed, not fully comprehending the situation. Here's where things get fuzzy. I knew that this thing wasn't supposed to be here, so I start to say you aren't supposed to be here. As soon as the thought is fully formed in my mind, before I've had a chance to say it aloud, the entity jerks forward. It jabs its left arm, tentacle, appendage, into my right side. Right between my ribs. I feel no pain, but I feel a strange sensation that horrifies me. I sit up reflexively. The entity is gone. Told my mom about it in the morning. She told me it was demonic. I brush it off as sleep paralysis because at the time I was a staunch materialist, even though I didn't feel paralyzed at any point, even though I've Never had sleep paralysis before or since. Stopped taking DPH after that. Had a dull ache in that spot between my ribs consistently whenever I tried to meditate for years afterward. That's the only story I got. I'm 28 now. I used to get experiences like this when I first started dabbling in the occult. I don't really have any good stories, but a fair few generic kind of experiences. Wake up to screams, lights appearing in bedroom after a middle pillar exercise. Succubus experiences, probably spookiest one that left me unwell. Completely drained, for a few days. Was smoked the marijuana cigarette. It was actually an AC powered vape I had. Started getting very bad vibe. Decided to do LBRP, starting to trace pentagram in blue. Pentagram turns red and flips. At this point, I was still pretty unfamiliar with things. I didn't really believe in the notion of entities, etc. but had ESP-like experiences on psychedelics and was doing LBRP in good faith. Dog-faced demon appears. Starts laughing at me. Try to ignore and trace pentagram in south. Turns red. Flips. Dog-faced demon, laughing more and mocking more. I gave up, scared shitless, shaking, went back to my bed and basically just endured until the voices and apparitions went away. I should probably also add that the dog-faced demon wasn't necessarily a full physical manifestation. The best description I can give is that it's like it's there in one eye, but not in the other. Likewise for succubus experiences, except your body responds fully to their sensation. I was a ghost once. Be me. 12. Yo, we lived on a farm. My favorite hobby was hiking in the woods. All the woods around there were owned by someone, since the government requires 20% of the land to be native forest. I got bored of just walking around our patch of land, so I began to hike around the neighbors. Thing is, I was invading, and did not tell anyone. Once I was on a piece that I really liked. The treetops were really dense, so it was really dark and nothing new was growing. Thick old vines were everywhere. Overall, really spooky. I am going back home when I hear a family moving and talking through the forest. Dad, Mom, a small boy and girl. The kids are running, playing and screaming. And the parents are having a conversation. They are between me and my way home. So I decide to just circle them. They change directions and come directly at me. The kids are now running right to where I am. Panic.jpg. They don't know me. They will think I am a thief, a poacher, or something else bad. I might get shot, they might call the cops, or even worse, I will have to talk to strangers. I look around for a place to hide, but now any running or sudden moves will alert them faster. As I look around, I see that this place looks really haunted. It was dark despite the clear sun on top of the trees. I am carrying a stick. So I began to limp, using the stick as support. Threw my hair over my face, and made a face of pure agony and pain. Pretend I couldn't see or hear them. Kids run towards my direction, and stop about 10 meters away. As they go quiet, they run back to the parents, and whisper something to the mom. Mom went quiet. Dad keeps talking by himself for a good 10 seconds. She gives a warning, trying to get the husband's attention, with pure fear in her voice. There is a boy there. Look. They stay quiet. I keep my act, walking like that for almost 1 kilometer. No one is following me, so I ran back home and never went there again. I think the only one with a lot more to it is the sex cult. And it's basically the following in the 60s. The bush people who used to live way the fuck out in the middle of nowhere all started to move into the cities to work. Bear in mind that city meant like 20k people back then in these areas. We're talking deep hillbillies here. Not just rednecks, the kind of people who put a crucifix beside a native dream catcher and sacrifice a chicken under it for good luck. So one day my grandfather, who descends from these people but moved to the city in the 40s, hears the locals spreading rumors about weird shit going on, lights in the woods, voices, monsters, etc. So he goes out to see what the fuck the bush people are up to, because of course he knows it's them doing some shit. Essentially they've got a biggest wooden idol with a moose skull on it set up in the woods, and they're holding a bonfire, chanting and fucking and God knows what else. He approaches and they invite him in, even though he's dressed like a townie. He tells them he's married and they say bring your wife too. He's like no. Fuck that. You people are freaking out the townies, you gotta stop this. They make all kinds of threats, but he's got a gun and isn't afraid of their bush voodoo bullshit because he grew up with it. Eventually they break it up and go home. He tells the townies about what happened and tells them to call the cops. If it happens again, cops end up getting called like a dozen times over the next few years to break up orgies in the woods. Bush people eventually settle for just wife swapping a lot. That's about it really. This happened to me sometime in 2017. Be me working at grocery store, closing cashier shift, night going normally. Nothing out of the ordinary. 11 p.m. comes around. Manager and I go to punch out. We're the only two people in the store, talking and joking as usual. When clocking out in break room, we both hear a loud crashing sound. Like a bunch of pots and pans fell off the wall. Opposite side of break room wall was the deli. Manager and I look at each other a bit unnerved. We walk around to the deli and look, nothing out of place. Last deli clerk left an hour prior. We check bakery. Nothing out of place there either, left that night. Kind of baffled. Another day I spoke to a different manager about the experience, and she believed me and had her own experience in the store. Said she was walking in the back room, and a clipboard hanging on the wall flew off behind her while she was the only one in the room. Store isn't even that old. Was built in the 90s. In summer 2018 my partner and I had an somewhat interesting experience whilst driving north on Phantom Canyon RD from Florence Co to Cripple Creek, Cobias. Driving north through Phantom Canyon on a typical dry sunny day. Drive goes normally, nothing out of the ordinary. When we get to Cripple Creek, we get out and notice on the hood of the car, just above the passenger side headlight, there is what looks like a dirty handprint that hadn't been there before. Then for some reason I freak out that my keys are missing, look around the car, can't find them. We go to a local donut shop for a snack, then head back to the car. We drive back home to Denver. Rain washes away the handprint. Somehow find my keys in an obvious place and kind of forget why I freaked out earlier. Felt like my memory was a bit off from the day. Don't recall any missing time. But I wasn't really paying much attention to how long the trip took through the canyon. Nothing else happened. Learn later that the reason behind it being called Phantom Canyon was from the old F&CC railroad, where the train crews would see the ghost of a recently executed prisoner along the line in the canyon.
Saturdays for the boys. You can watch movies with the tribe on Depleted Uranium Driving Theatre Saturday afternoons at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, only on Twitch TV.
Like, share and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to ring the notification bell. You can follow us on Twitter at Motel and RV Park. Catch the live streams on Rumble. Listen to text-to-speech stories on Atomic Shaman TTS on YouTube.